Hey everyone, Mr. MC here. This is guide for round 4 of the 2021-2022 Manufacturer Series exhibition season taking place at the Nurburgring Nordschleife with the Group 4 cars. And since this is a pretty long track, I'll be stopping a bit less often so we're not here all day. And we'll start off with the final corner actually. You want to brake before the tarmac on the left starts as you're on the racing hard tires, so there's not that much grip to begin with. So just be nice and careful going through the final corner, and your first braking point is before the pit wall on the right end. So you're braking hard for a while, nice and easy off of the brakes, and gently get on the throttle since now you're going downhill. Then when you pass the sign on the left, that's when you want to turn in. Try to take it flat out, do a little lift off of the throttle if necessary. Then brake when this dry patch of grass on the right starts. So brake hard for a short moment, then do lots of braking control so you can still have the ability to turn as you're slowing down. Carefully get on the throttle, nice and easy on the brakes as you go through these series of corners. Just try not to upset the car's balance. And before the tarmac changes color, that's when you want to start to brake. So right around here, that's where you want to start to slow down. Carefully get on the throttle, really easy to lose control over here. Then you can just go flat out for a while. For the flood plats, which leads to the right turn, all you want to do is just do a little lift off the throttle, just like that. Nothing too dramatic. No need to use the brakes unless if there's traffic in front of you. So you're going to be going as fast as you can through here. Eventually, you want to bring yourself towards the right side of the track, and when you pass the final two signs, that's when you want to start to lift off of the throttle. You can use this a tiny bit of braking if necessary, but you want to start to brake before the curb on the left end. So brake as much as you can for a short while, and just gradually transition over from the braking to the throttle. And once again, you're going to be going flat out through here for a while until we start to go uphill, so we'll be there in a short moment. Bring yourself towards the right side of the track, and you're looking for this dry patch of grass on the right as you want to use that as your next braking point. So use a little bit of braking because there's a turn right after. Then you just want to ease on the brakes, just trying to slow yourself down along the way, and then brake before you reach the crosswalk. Bring yourself all the way to the inside of the turn for the left turn and the right turn, using lots of throttle control. Really easy to lose control if you get way too aggressive. Then bring yourself towards the right side of the track. As you make the left turn, use a tad bit of braking. Look for the writing on the ground as that is your next braking point. So brake hard for a short moment. Nice and easy off of the brakes. Gradually get on the throttle. Bring yourself towards the left. Look for the signs on the left as they're your next braking point. You can go through here on third gear just to try to maintain stability on the M4. And you can go through here flat out. But bring yourself towards the left and brake before the curb on the right starts. So you want to use just a little bit of braking, just trying to slow yourself down while still have the ability to turn. Very careful through here. Really easy to lose control or go off track. And then brake just after the big dry patch of grass on the left starts. And you want to do a little bit of braking control because there's a hairpin that follows right after the right turn, just like we went through. Very easy on the throttle so you can maintain control of your car. Bring yourself towards the left, brake before the curb on the right starts. Nice and easy off of the brakes, carefully getting on the throttle, brake before the curb on the left starts, just like the last turn. Nice and easy off of the brakes. Nice and easy back on the throttle. Also, apologies if you hear a bunch of noise in the background. Those are the neighbors doing whatever they're doing. But anyways, look for the blue dot or the Yokohama sign as you're braking in between them, preferably before the Yokohama sign. Ease off of the brakes as you turn in. Be very patient on the throttle. Really easy to be impatient and end up on the grass. So that's the last thing you want to do. So just go ahead and fast forward through here. Look for the end of the curb that is on the right. So this great curb, that's when you want to start to turn in. Lift off of the throttle. Use a tiny bit of braking if you need to try to avoid touching the grass. This left turn can be taken flat out, and then brake before the curb on the left starts. So you're braking right around here, you're braking hard for a while. You just want to take your time transitioning over from the braking to the throttle. Just nice and easy, no need to rush it. And for the carousel, you're braking just after you pass the happy little tree that is on the left. Make sure you wave hello to it before or after you pass the carousel. Be careful about throwing yourself into the carousel, because with the racing hard tires, you can actually spin out if you enter the carousel way too fast. So just try to ease yourself in so there's no drama between your car and that turn. Then for this turn coming up, brake when the curb on the right starts. Just a little bit of braking, a little bit of throttle control. Look for these track marshals that are on the right, as they're your braking point for this right turn. Really hard braking point to nail down, so they can be your good reference point right there. Lift off of throttle as you go through this right turn. A little bit of braking through this left turn to try to stay on the track. Brake before the curb on the left, and so brake a little bit earlier than I do so you don't go too wide. Bring yourself towards the right and brake before you reach the Yokohama sign. So you're braking right around here, just trying to bring yourself all the way to the left side of the track, because there's a curb on the left that you want to brake before it ends, and I'm talking about this gray one right here. Brake before it ends. You can stay on 4th gear in the BMW M4. Brake before the curb on the left ends. Once again, nice and easy on the throttle. Bring yourself towards the right and brake just as the dry patch of grass on the right starts. So you can actually brake just a hair later than I do. Just trying to carry a bit more speed if you can. And for this next part, you want to brake just before you make the jump. So right around here, quick burst of braking. Carefully getting on the throttle so you don't end up in a YouTube video about going off track and ending up on the gravel. And you can pretty much just go through here flat out. So take a little bit of a breather, because this next part can get a little tricky depending on your racing situation. Look for the digital flag that is on the right. That's your next braking point. Nice and easy on the brakes, and you want to bring yourself towards the right. Brake before the curb on the right ends. Nice and easy on the throttle. And you can look for this specific dry patch of grass on the right and use that as your braking point. Just be careful about entering way too fast into the mini carousel. Really easy to do that and have the mini carousel spit you out. Then brake before the curb on the left ends. Just a little bit of braking, no big deal. Little lifts off of the throttle to try to bring yourself towards the right and set yourself up for the final back straight. Here's also the penalty serving zone. Make sure you don't get a penalty, otherwise it'll feel like you ended up in purgatory. But anyways, you can go through this left turn flat out. Right turn, you can take it flat out, but brake before the curb on the right end. So you're going to see me brake just as it ends actually. You're going to brake as much as you can. Nice and easy on the throttle. Be very careful through here and brake before the tarmac on the left starts, just like in the start of the video. But that's all for the lap guide. Let's go ahead and take a look at the strategies. And this part's going to be pretty quick for the qualifying section of the guide. So you pretty much just want to qualify by yourself, far away from everyone else, because the last thing you want is to be on a really good qualifying lap and then have your qualifying lap interrupted because you got too close to someone. So with the 13-minute qualifying time, you'll have plenty of time to try to get yourself away from everyone else. Just try to create a big gap between yourself and the next car so you don't have to worry about them getting in your way during your qualifying lap. So you can spend the first 10 to 11 minutes just trying to get yourself the space that you need so you don't come across them when you do your qualifying lap. And that's kind of it. With the tire wear and fuel at time 0, you don't need to do any sort of tire saving or fuel saving, anything like that. So pretty much the qualifying section, it's all about trying to give yourself the space that you need in your out lap. Make sure you have enough time to start your qualifying lap before the first countdown hits 0. And then you can pretty much just go all out. Just try your best, try to get a clean, fast lap to start up as high up as you can, especially because this race does have a grid start. So at the end of the day, you'll only have one chance to try to get the best qualifying time possible. So you want to make sure that your only qualifying lap counts, and just make sure no one gets in your way. So give yourself a lot of space between yourself and the next car. But anyways, let's move on over to the race strategy. So we're doing 3 laps at Nurburgring Nordschleife with the Group 4 cars, and this is a grid start. So make sure you have the traction control set to 1, and shortly after you start the race, or after you go through the first turn or the final turn, depending on where you're starting, you can then bring the traction control back down to 0, or whatever value you normally have it set to. And just drive carefully for the first half of the lap, because you're on cold racing hard tires, so you can catch yourself understeering or oversteering out of nowhere because there's no heat on those tires just yet. And because this is a grid start, chances are that people are going to bunch up a lot sooner than you think. So this first half of the lap, or even the first lap in its entirety, is going to be a bit more about survival. So you can see how people just bunch up really quickly. We're not even a quarter of the way into the race, and there's just a lot of bunching up going on. You just want to try to be careful, just try to navigate your way through the track. Don't end up going off track like how I did because of the cold tires. They caught me by surprise and I almost spun out right there. Yeah, you got to be really careful here, and especially when it comes to the fuel, you got to be careful with that because fuel is a major issue. So fuel is a ×5, so fuel is a major issue. Tire is a ×6. Tire, not too much of an issue. Just don't drive too carelessly and you'll be fine. So when it comes to the fuel, you want to try to save up a bit of fuel, mainly by short shifting, doing a bit of fuel mapping if necessary, and being under someone's slipstream. So if you're within 3/4 of a second behind someone, you're in their slipstream, you'll be getting a tow from them, and you can be a bit more aggressive with your short shifting and even fuel mapping to try to save a bit more fuel. And the goal here is to only use 33% of fuel per lap or less, and that way you won't have to refuel. But there may be cases where you do need to refuel, so you will likely end up going for a splash and dash depending on your car and your situation. And you just got to be really careful through here. Lots of shenanigans are going to be bound to happen, so you just got to try to make your way around it. Just try to stay out of trouble if you can. And you can use the fuel mapping feature, or the fuel mapping multi-function display on the bottom right hand corner of the screen to monitor your fuel usage. So you can press the left or the right on your D-pad so you can access it, and you can even access brake balance and traction control. And with this fuel mapping, you can see how many laps of fuel you have left, how much fuel in percentage you have left. You can even adjust the fuel mapping with the up or the down. So for example, having it at 1, you have 100% power, so you're using as much power as the engine can give, but you use the most amount of fuel. But if you move it down to say 6 or the lean setting, you're using much less engine power, but you're saving a lot more fuel. So you can adjust that, especially if you're under someone's slipstream, and that'll help you save a bit more fuel if you need to. So for example, I'm well within the slipstream of the Brazilian in front of me, and I don't intend on passing him, and I'm already going towards my top speed, so I'm going to move the fuel mapping to 6, use a bit less engine power, save a bit more fuel, and then eventually when I want to pass him, or when I go back towards accelerating out of this turn, I move it back to 1 for a bit. But once again, because I don't want to pass him just yet, I'm going to move the fuel mapping towards 6. He's giving me the tow because I'm in the slipstream, so I'm fuel saving even more while still aggressively short shifting, especially in this car. And yeah, slipstream, it's going to be your best friend in this race, mainly for the fuel saving reasons. And actually, let's go ahead and go on over to the pit stop, because you do have to go into the pit stop one time And with this pit stop, you want to either refuel or just do a stop and go. So this is just like last week's race at Sardinia Sea, where you had to go into the pit stop one time and choose to either do a stop and go or go for a tire change. In this one, it's either you choose to refuel or not refuel. It'll depend on your situation. So at the end of lap 2, I should have 33% of fuel left, but I actually have extra fuel left. I have 36% of fuel left, so I don't need to refuel. And before I go on, you need to look for this diamond, because this diamond tells you that considering your current driving style, this amount of fuel is needed to be able to finish the race. So for example, right here, you can see that the fuel matches with the diamond, so I'm good on fuel. I don't need to refuel. But if the bar is before the diamond, then that means that you will have to refuel. So just keep an eye on the diamond, because that will give you an idea of where you are in terms of fuel. And in terms of pit loss, it's going to kind of vary a bit, because the pace here at Nurburgring Nordschleife is going to be different between each and every single person. For me, I ended up getting around a 22-second pit loss for a stop and go. If you have to refuel, you will be adding more time to that 22-second pit loss. Some cars may actually be faster doing a splash and dash. So some cars, they may not be as good when it comes to fuel saving, but they do perform a lot better, pushing a bit more. And I'm looking at you, Ford Mustang, as that car is not good when it comes to fuel saving. It loses all of its pace. So Ford Mustang should do a bit better, pushing a bit more, but that does mean that you will need to refuel. And this will depend on the car that you're using, and personally on how you drive. Some people or some cars may do better when they're pushing a bit more. So if you perform a lot better pushing and having to take the refuel, then you may be better off just doing that. Some may be better just fuel saving and hopefully just not have to refuel. So that's something that you want to be aware of. If you have a bit of time to practice that out, definitely do so, because you want to get a good idea of what you want to do for this race. And actually right here, I'm just short on fuel, but I can still do just a bit more fuel saving and I should be fine. I actually have exactly one lap of fuel left, so I'm not forced to refuel. That will be a case if you do pit at the end of lap 2. If you're short on fuel, if you have under 1 lap's worth of fuel, you will be forced to refuel, so just be careful of that. You can even pit as early as the end of lap 1 in case you're trying to go for undercut, but again, just be careful with the undercuts, because you may end up pitting out into people who haven't pitted yet, and if you catch up to them, you're going to lose a lot more time that way. And that's kind of it in terms of the general things that's going on with this race. Just try to avoid the shenanigans, try to avoid the trouble if you can. Fuel saving will be pretty useful for this race, but be aware that some cars will either perform better doing some more fuel saving, while other cars may perform a bit better pushing a bit more and taking the splash and dash. If you're going to go for the splash and dash, just make sure you're not revving the nuts out of the car, because then you'll be stuck in the pit stop for about 10,000 years trying to refuel. And in terms of how long this race will take, it's going to differ a lot between the types of lobbies that you're in. So in a higher split race, you're probably going to see the race being as long as 21 minutes and 45 seconds. For me, I did the race in 21 minutes and 53 seconds, and that was without refueling, by the way. So yeah, it's going to vary greatly, because the pace that people have here at the Nordschleife is very different. But to give you an idea, 21 minutes are the best times that I've been seeing so far. So it'll be around there for the higher splits and a bit slower for the lower splits. And I do want to make a quick note for those using the BMW M4. You can shift a heck of a lot earlier than what you think, because this car's power plateaus kind of early on, so before the bar even starts to fill up. So you may have noticed that in the race clips that I've been showing, and I'll show you right here. If you go into the car settings and highlight over the power ratio, you can see that the car's power plateaus at around 6,000 or just before that 5,500 to 6,000 RPM. So you can shift before the bar even starts to fill up, because shifting there is pretty much the same as shifting when the bar is halfway full, 75% full. And with this car being terrible on fuel going flat out, you actually want to shift a lot earlier than what you think to try to save fuel. So in the clips that I've been showing, I've been shifting at around 6,000 to 6,250 RPM, because at those revs, I'm getting the same power as I would be if I was shifting when the bar was 25, 50, or even 75% fuel, except by shifting where I'm shifting at 6,000 to 6,250 RPM, I'm not burning as much fuel. So if you start to see the bar start to fill up and you're in the BMW M4, you're starting to burn fuel. And if you keep doing that, you will risk having to refuel if you haven't pitted yet. But yeah, just wanted to point that out because this car is a bit weird when it comes to that. Terrible on fuel going flat out, but good on fuel saving. Really weird combination. But before I go, I just want to quickly show where the only penalty steering zone is hanging out at. It's hanging out at the very start of the very final back straight. Try not to pick up a penalty in this race because you will be serving it right here. You will lose a lot of speed, a lot of momentum, a lot of time, and potentially you could lose quite a few positions. So try to have a squeaky clean race. Don't pick up any penalties. But that's pretty much it for the guide. Once again, make sure you enter the pit stop one time. Even if you don't have to refuel, you still need to go into the pit stop one time so you don't get a 1 minute penalty after the race ends. And do a bit of fuel saving if you can, so you don't spend too much time refueling. But that's all for me. Thank you guys for the support. Thank you to Playseat for supporting the channel as well. But I'm going to go ahead and sign off now and get ready to make the daily race guide. So that's all from me. This is Mr. MCA wishing you a good race, and I'll see you in the next video.